Hi and welcome to the day 2 of the Confidence Infusion program. Today we are going to talk about a Python developer. So this is a job description. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to look at some of the key terms, IT terms, acronyms, etc., programming languages and frameworks that we can see inside this job description. And I'll also show you what questions can you ask a hiring manager and a candidate during an interview. So stay tuned. Let's dive right in. Now I'm just looking at the job description of a Python developer. So let's go through the content of the job description first, and I'm going to tell you a little more about the questions I would ask a hiring manager and a developer during a call. All right, so we are looking at the Python developer job description. I have changed the name of the company, otherwise you just copy paste it from some public job board. As a Python Django developer, you will support an integrated team supporting our federal client. You will be part of a dynamic team, This position is on-site in downtown Washington, D.C. So there are two important keywords, which is Python and Django. So Python is a programming language and Django is a framework. We can talk about this in a while. Let me now go through the rest of the job description. Scope and responsibilities. The candidate must be flexible, work collaborative. Like, this is just fluff, I would say, like nothing really interesting in this whole paragraph. What we can see next is that the candidate will be building backend RESTful APIs. So you may know, if you don't know, then you may also go through the IT Recruiter toolkit to learn a little more about Python and its use. So Python can be used for web development, for data engineering, for data science. And in fact, I've got a nice mind map here, which is also a part of the booklet. So you can see that Python is also good for data engineering, for data science. It's actually Python's popularity is increasing heavily in the last few years because of its use in data science and machine learning. Lots of software engineers use it to calculate, some statistics or whatnot. So that's why its popularity increased. Even though Python has been used heavily for web development and for backend APIs, especially, as you can see, the Django, Falcon, or Flask frameworks. Okay, so what you as a recruiter again need to know is the programming language, which is Python, and the framework, which is Django. And also, you should be clear on what purpose the language will be used for, because a developer who uses it for web development may know nothing about data science or the use of Python in robotics or to process data. So ETL is actually this domain where we extract data, transform data, and then load data to some other data storage. So that's whole ETL. Okay, so this is really like high level. We have it covered in depth in the IT Recruiter toolkit, so you can go deep down. I think it should be somewhere at the end in those advanced modules where we focus on data engineering, and that's where I also talked about ETL processes. So I encourage you to look at that part also. So coming back to the job description, you can also see the second bullet point highlighting the ETL processes. So now you have an idea what ETL processes are, to process data, extract data from one data source and load to another data storage, which is completely different compared to building APIs, building websites. So this is something I would need to clarify with the hiring manager. Are you sure this developer will be doing both backend development and also extracting data? Because often this is sort of isolated. Okay, create public RESTful APIs. Well, this is pretty much the same as the first bullet point. Write backend and frontend code. On the front end, use jQuery. So these days on the front end, there are more popular frameworks being used and pushed. For example, React or Vue.js or Angular, right? Like jQuery is also a library/framework that's it's been very popular years ago, but now its popularity decreases over time, and it's considered as a legacy. Well, it's still good for some use, although yeah, developers these days prefer React, Angular, Vue.js, etc. Okay, understand search tools like Solr or Elasticsearch. So Solr or Elasticsearch are used for full text search. So say a company, some project, a website has a huge amounts of data, and there is usually a search box on top, right? So the search systems like Solr or Elasticsearch are able to process huge amounts of data when someone searches in the box. And they can return relevant results. So they expect the developer to have experience with this, which could be okay. It's also questionable into which extent this is a must-have requirement, because a developer can also just learn this on the job. If they already have it all set up, well then, yeah, it should not be such a big deal. Participate in stand-ups, code reviews. So this is a little more about the work methodology, which is good to know. Provide ideas for innovation development. So they use PyUnit for testing, unit testing, which is also good to know. And yeah, now in the second section, they focused on skills and qualifications. So again, we see Python as a programming language, Django as a framework. This is super important. This is probably the most important information in this job description. 5 years of overall objective-oriented programming experience. Well, this is mainstream these days. May not be as relevant anymore in a job description. Experience with JSON-based APIs. Well, like these days, most of the APIs are JSON-based, so it's not like, I cannot really imagine any developer would not have this experience. So the relevancy of this requirement is rather low. Experience with JavaScript and jQuery. This could be important, especially if the person will be working on both backend and frontend, which seems to be the case, but we should clarify this with the hiring manager. And what doesn't make sense, I would say, is the experience with WordPress, because why suddenly they expect a backend or front-end developer to have experience with WordPress? And I mean, WordPress is a content management system, so no big deal. A developer can just open our website. It's a software as a service, so it's not difficult. Maybe what they meant is installing WordPress and running and maintaining WordPress on a private server, which is also an option with WordPress, but it's not clear here, like what kind of experience, how deep experience, and why. So this is what I would need to also clarify with the hiring manager, because otherwise I would just leave it out. And experience with search engines, we talked about Solr, Elasticsearch. Again, can it be just learned on the job? Most likely yes, unless we are looking for a a database sort of administrator who would set this up and maintain and take care of it. Additional desired experience includes Jenkins or some other content integration tools, and Jira and Git. So this is mainstream, like nothing really surprising. So now what I would encourage you guys to do right now, when you print this worksheet out, or you can also fill it in this Google form, just list the terms that are IT related. Like what are the terms? For example, I highlighted the terms after I printed out, so Python, Django, obviously, but what else? RESTful API, ETL, Python, Django, etc. Like write it down. Next, what would you ask a hiring manager? You already have a few clues, so what would you ask? How would you extract something more interesting? How would you sell this opportunity to a developer? Because it's really difficult to sell something as vague as this job description seems to be, because we don't know anything about the project. We don't know about the technical stack really, because they just expect the candidate to have experience with Solr or Elasticsearch. But we don't really know if they use Solr or Elasticsearch or both or none of them, but they maybe use Hadoop, or I don't know, it's actually Hadoop is for something else, but Yeah, you get the point. Like, we don't know about the technical stack. What else would you ask a candidate? Okay, so write this down. Try to go through this. And if you don't know, you can pause the video now. And if you don't know, you may resume and watch again. The next steps, because I'm going to tell you my answers. So the terms include, for example, also JSON, jQuery, Jenkins, Jira, Git. So let me tell you about these terms really briefly. So for Python and Django, I will open up this mind map again. So you can see that Python can be used for web development, for asynchronous APIs, for data engineering, data science, and robotics. Robotics/IoT. Web development, again, I'm just shooting these key terms, so you have some mental model, right? Like web development, Django, Filecoin, and Flux. So as soon as a developer next time says, hey, I'm using Django, then it's backend development. It's building backend APIs for some website. Data engineering, ETL processes, again, extracting data and loading elsewhere. Data science, machine learning, ML stands for machine learning, or plotting, building some charts, plotting data on charts. So this is what Python can do really well, or some math or stat, robotics, etc. Okay, so this is a refresher. This is what you need to know in the middle of the night. Agile methodology, agile methodologies, because agile as such is not a methodology. Agile is a set of principles, a set of values. So there has been a manifesto written already 20 years ago, and based on that manifesto, methodologies such as Kanban or Scrum were designed, or yeah. So RESTful APIs, pretty much, there are only two types of APIs, so it could be REST or SOAP. RESTful. REST is the key term, and SOAP. So REST is mainstream these days, so it's probably not even relevant here. It's enough for the developer to know that they will be building backend APIs, and that's it. Search engines I already covered. Object-oriented programming, OOP. This is again mainstream, nothing really interesting to mention. JavaScript, programming language. JSON is the object notation, so JavaScript object notation. So how the way data are exchanged between APIs, between different services. What is the format of the data? So that's JSON. And jQuery is the library that's it used to be really popular years ago, but now its popularity decreases. WordPress, it's a content management system. Jenkins is a continuous integration, continuous delivery tool. It enables developers to automate the mundane tasks. So, Travis is an alternative. Jira, a tool to be used for project management, issue tracking, and Git is a technology. So there is, for example, GitHub or GitLab are the services, the tools based on Git as a technology. ETL I covered already, and PyUnit is the unit testing framework. So now you have an idea. You see what is important, what is not important. If you don't know these terms, if you'd like to go deeper, then obviously just go through the IT Recruiter toolkit, where I explain these terms, terminologies, frameworks, languages, etc. Okay, next section. What would you ask a hiring manager? So I mentioned that some things are not clear about the role. However, in no particular order, the first thing that popped in my mind when I was reading the job description was the word exhaustive. Write exhaustive unit tests. And the way I think about job descriptions, it should be a job advertisement. And the word exhaustive doesn't really feel like I'm selling it well, because the unit tests are generally already quite boring. Developers don't really, love writing unit tests or integration tests or whatever other tests, because it's just a test, right? They are not really producing some cool feature. So that's why there is already some, say, rather negative attitude towards writing tests. And then, highlighting in the job description that you are supposed to write exhaustive unit tests. Like, you'll be really tired of writing all these tests. Like, why would you, write this in a job description? Like, imagine I would write, hey, you will write boring, lengthy unit tests. And I mean, like, why? I would rather rephrase it and write something like, we expect you to write, or we expect you to cover your code with unit tests, and that's more straightforward. It's not as negative. Okay, next. Which search engine do you use, Solr or Elasticsearch? That's what I would ask the hiring manager, because I would like to tell the candidate what exactly is being used in the company, not just, hey, they use some search engine, but I don't know which one. So I would like to ask. Third question, what will the person work on in the first 30 or 60 or 90 or 100 days? Backend APIs or websites or data engineering, extracting data and loading elsewhere, or data science, or what? What exactly? You are looking for a Python developer, but what will he or she work on? You mentioned backend or front-end development in the job description, and we don't know. So let's make it clear. Why is experience with WordPress really necessary? Is this a must-have skill? In fact, it's not really a skill. It's just experience. Maybe what they meant with WordPress is building some plugins, but WordPress is written in PHP, right? Which is different than Python. So why is this relevant? I'll write it here. WordPress is written in PHP. Just as a side note, because we should be aware of this, because even if they would require the Python developer to write plugins for WordPress, this person may not be compatible, because we are asking a Python developer to write plugins in PHP, which doesn't make sense. So hey, let's ask this hiring manager. Is experience with search engines necessary? Can he or she learn it on the job? I would say yes, unless we are looking for an administrator. An administrator should not just learn on the job, but the developer can learn it, because it would already be set up. What front-end framework do you use besides jQuery? I would like to see something modern, something more up-to-date, because jQuery has been great years ago, but these days developers enjoy working with something more modern, something more up-to-date, like I mentioned, React, Angular, Vue.js. I'll write it here again, React, Angular, Vue.js. Okay, something cooler. Next question, what if I bring a great Python developer with only 6 years of experience without a college degree? And by the way, I'll get back to the last sentence, which I didn't read before. So undergraduate degree is highly desired, but can be substituted with 4 additional years of experience. So we are talking about 5 years of solid experience plus additional 4 years of experience. And that's why my question to the hiring manager, hey, hiring manager, are you sure? Like, what if I bring you a great Python developer with only 6 years? Like, it's already a lot, 6 years of Python experience without a college degree. Will you hire him or not? Most likely they will hire him. So so that just leads to this requirement not really a requirement. Okay, next I have a few questions that I would also ask a candidate. So if someone comes for an interview, or I screen someone, I interview someone on the phone, what would I ask the candidate? So I would, for example, ask, hey, have you ever worked with big data or data warehouse using the ETL process? So extract, transform, and load. And if yes, if they worked with these ETL processes, I would ask if they use Python, because they could also have used some other other language to process the data. They could, for example, use PL SQL. Okay, next question would be, what's your attitude towards front-end development? The thing is, lots of developers want to focus on back-end development only, and here we are looking for, apparently, we are looking for a back-end developer, front-end developer, data engineer, like everything, right? So full-stack developer. But what if the person we are talking to, the developer, doesn't really want to work on the front-end? Let's figure this out. What front-end JavaScript framework have you worked with? So we may need to ask about jQuery, that's obvious, but what else? What other framework have you worked with? Again, React, Angular, Vue.js. Tell me more about the projects you've developed with Django, just to figure out if the person has really been using Django and how, what was the level, etc. What CI/CD tools do you use in your current company project? You may remember in this project they use Jenkins, or at least it feels like they again expect the experience, but it's not clear if Jenkins is part of the technical stack. So I would like to ask the hiring manager a little more about the technical stack, and that's why I'll add here a question. Please describe your current technical stack. Okay, so this is how I would approach the question. And then I would ask what tools, CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development tools have been used in candidates' previous company. What tools do you use to keep track of new features and production issues? So here I want to ask about tools like Jira, or maybe some other Atlassian tools, or GitHub issues, or whatever, like developers may use other tools and they can shift from one to another. So even though a candidate may not have working experience with the Jira, well, they can just learn it because it's just a tool, right? So they can learn. Okay, so I covered this job description. Python developer, I explained you some of these terms. What I just recently recorded was also another video where I talk about Python developers, about these different aspects of Python development, web, data science, data engineering, robotics, etc. So I'll also include this video below this video, so you can also watch it if you like. And yeah, anyway, I encourage you to fill in the blanks in this worksheet, because that's how you really learn this, right? Only if you say 50 times think about these languages, these frameworks, these technologies, only then you'll be confident in front of a hiring manager and a developer during an interview. So yeah, let's wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed the day 2 of the Confidence Infusion program. I hope your confidence will go through the roof after we complete the day 30. So stay tuned and yeah, have a great time learning about IT.